Happy early Wednesday morning / crack of dawn, everyone. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live in an empty, desolate Mackey Arena that a few hours ago was a living, breathing thing as number 3 Purdue defeated number 13 Illinois 84-68 in the biggest game of the season to date for Purdue until the next biggest game of the season for Purdue. As always, this is your rap video following Purdue basketball games. It is brought to you by our friends at the Purdue Club Hotel. I have a live read for you, so get excited, folks. Gather with your friends at the Boiler Up Bar, the Purdue Club Hotel's iconic craft cocktail bar. It is a perfect place to meet before and after the game. There you go. So Purdue wins 84-68. To start off this video, I want to remind you guys, those of you who know me, know that I'm a bit of a dork, kind of a nerd. Big Star Wars guy right here. I know what you're thinking. No way the cool sports writer, the guy with a laptop, the guy who does these awesome videos afterwards, he couldn't possibly be a nerd. No, it's true. I am. Big Star Wars guy. To give you some perspective on what Jaden Ivey is becoming, let me take you back to believe it was The Empire Strikes Back, when Luke Skywalker goes to the Dagobah system to train with Yoda to become a Jedi. And if you recall that scene, Luke is only scratching the surface of the powers he will eventually have. And the best way I can put what Jaden Ivey's done here the last few games, peaking with his Glenn Robinson-ish performance tonight, is he's starting to raise the X-Wing fighter out of the muck. With Yoda watching, I don't know who Yoda would be in this situation. I have no idea. Didn't think that far. I'm just thinking of Luke raising the X-Wing fighter out of the muck, grasping his powers, finally starting to harness what's inside of him. I've said many times before that Jaden Ivey is only scratching the surface of what he can be as a player. And I think what you've seen here the last 5-6 games, whatever it's been during Purdue's winning streak, he is really becoming something entirely different than he was last season, and even to start this season. He's just going to a whole other level, and I don't think he's even halfway to what he might be one day. I mean, we're talking about NBA All-Star type of potential here, and not just a guy who can get to the next level and hang around. We're talking about a guy who can be a legitimate, star at the next level. That's not his focus right now, I'm quite certain. And Purdue's damn fortunate it is. It's not, because he's in that situation now where, you need him dialed into everything going on in the moment. And every indication has been he's been great about that. If he were me, if I were him, I should say, I got that completely backwards, I would totally be looking at the draft boards every night. I would be looking at whatever I might be able to buy here in a couple months. Anyway, I'm way off on a tangent here, but Jaden Ivey is just getting better every game, and you literally saw him get pissed off, and you saw the flip switch with him. I think this game was a really physical game. I think Illinois was holding him and Sasha Stefanovic the whole first half, didn't get a whole lot of calls. I think the ball he turned over there under the basket, I think was him kind of hitting his boiling point. I didn't see a foul on the replay, but I also had it in low definition, so I didn't see what the one guy behind him arm was doing, but he obviously felt he got hit. You could see Eric Hunter kind of nudging him back up the floor to play defense, probably also having some words of wisdom for him. Purdue seniors being seniors. And after that, he just went crazy. During that 16-2 run, there was a run of 12 straight points that he either scored or assisted on. I think Isaiah Thompson made a 3 off an assist. But he was just absolutely brilliant. And you just saw him go to a whole other level and just absolutely turn this game on its side. And that's the biggest reason why Purdue just won its biggest game of the season the way that it did. Not the only reason, but the biggest reason. I think this game was very reminiscent of kind of some of Matt Painter's earlier teams, where they could kind of do the Hulk Hogan thing, where they're down on the mat, they start huffing and puffing, and then after the second half, they come out for the second half, and this place just turns them into something entirely different. They come out with an energy, and they were always good for that run to start the second half, and I think this was very reminiscent of that. I didn't think to this point this season Purdue had really had one of those classic Mackey Arena games where they just blow somebody's doors off. Florida State, yes. Iowa until the final 10 minutes, yes. But I thought it had been a while. This is a building renowned for making Purdue into something much more than it would be otherwise. Just like Assembly Hall at Indiana has a really funny way of doing things to opponents and making Indiana play better than Indiana might be. But I think this was a classic example of those moments I'm talking about, where Purdue comes out with a real energy, plays really hard, just has a skip in its step, whatever it might be, makes big plays, executes offensively at a really high level, and I think that's where this game turned. I think the end of the first half, made this game look different than I think it really was. I think there were some aberrations there, because I think Alfonso Plummer made 2 ridiculous shots, and I think Purdue had a horrific breakdown at the very end of the half, letting Andre Curbelo score at the buzzer. I don't think that little 10-2 run for Illinois to close the first half was reflective of how the game was going. Purdue had really kind of taken control of this thing about halfway through the first half, and then some funny things happened. But I thought Purdue was the better team for the final 30 minutes of this game. But the final couple minutes of the first half really kind of changed things cosmetically. I thought all along Purdue was going to win. But again, once you're behind on the scoreboard, if you come out and you don't play the way you need to play, you aren't going to do what you're supposed to do. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever at all, but Purdue absolutely positively played the way it needed to play. They defended a lot better. They stopped turning the ball over. And again, people look at Purdue's defensive metrics, all of that stuff, and they say this team can never win the national championship because Purdue, no national champion has ever had a defensive metric in the triple digits. Fine, I will give you that, and I will under no circumstances say Purdue is a great defensive team. I probably wouldn't even tell you Purdue is a very good defensive team. But when Purdue is a downright bad defensive team, it is because they are turning the ball over on offense. That is what got them beat at Indiana. That is what got them beat against Wisconsin. And that stuff didn't even happen at the end of games. That stuff happened in the first half. Purdue turned the ball over, gave their opponents not only points, but opportunities for their best players on those nights. Johnny Davis for Wisconsin, and in one of the weirdest things that's happened this Big Ten season, Robert Finney at Indiana. You let those guys get their heads up. You let those guys start feeling really good about themselves. You let them build up momentum simply by scoring off your mistakes. When Purdue does not turn the ball over, this is what happens. Illinois shoots. Now, Purdue did a better job defensively, don't get me wrong, but they also did not turn the ball over in the second half very much, and that's the big difference between Illinois. Why can't I read a box score anymore? Shooting 47% in the first half and 36% in the second half. Purdue did not turn the ball over. That is so freaking important. I can't emphasize that enough, that is such a big deal for Purdue. So please, if you remember nothing else from this rap video, certainly not the Star Wars analogy from before, if you remember nothing else, remember that. When Purdue doesn't turn the ball over, they are a much better defensive team than they are when they do. And that is the fixable part of the defensive problem. I don't think you're going to transform from a defensive perspective overnight. If you were, January would have been a good time for that. But what you can do is take care of the basketball, take good shots, all of that stuff. I just spit all over the place. Look at that. That's disgusting. When Purdue plays really disciplined offense, that's the key to the castle right there, I think, for this particular team. And you saw that in the second half. This is a really good Illinois team, Their starting lineup averages like 23.2 years old. This is not a college basketball team. This is a semi-pro team that Purdue has now swept in the regular season in 2 really physical games. That brings me to my other rant about how the COVID year the NCAA allowed is stupid. Just because 18% of their teams couldn't play in one NCAA tournament, you've basically tore down your whole model to allow 4 classes worth of players to fundamentally change your game. And that was classic NCAA, looking for a cheap, easy PR win that they probably didn't think through, that they probably didn't realize, hey, half of our teams can't afford to pay for all these scholarships for a year. You've also changed competitive balances of conferences, of the game. I mean, Purdue, this is Purdue's turn. This is Purdue's silver bullet type of team here. And the biggest team standing in your way here is a team with 2 6-year seniors, a 24-year-old transfer. The whole transfer thing also has changed the complexion of the game. The other team you're tied with in first place, Wisconsin, would not be tied for first place if they did not have Brad Davison back for his 17th year at Wisconsin. I just think that was a bad move by the NCAA. It makes me sound like a heartless shill here to say that, oh, you shouldn't do something generous and kind for your student athletes, when I have been banging the do more for the student athletes drum for years now. But I'm just saying that you've changed college basketball with some of this stuff. College basketball is supposed to be played by kids and young men, not young adults. And yes, there's going to be your occasional Sasha Stefanovic, who's a 23-year-old, 5th-year senior, whatever it might be. But college basketball is not to be played by, a whole team full of 22-year-olds, 22 and 23 and 24-year-olds, basically. That's my rant. I will let that go from here on out. But I raised that point to point out Illinois is really freaking good. These are the 2 best teams in the Big Ten, and I think it's relatively clear that these are the 2 best teams in the Big Ten. All due respect to Wisconsin, I think Michigan State's about to fall off a little bit, but I think these are the 2 best teams in the Big Ten, and this was just an enormous win for Purdue. Another quad 1 win. You've moved into a tie for first place in the Big Ten. I think you've put yourself in pole position for a Big Ten championship, at least a share of it. But also you have the tiebreaker over Illinois now, so that's going to give you a chance to, if you win at Wisconsin, I think you would have the tiebreaker over them as well. I really should not talk about things I haven't looked up yet, especially when it's 1:28 in the morning. But you've put yourself in a good position here to also get the number 1 seed for the Big Ten tournament, potentially, which, obviously it needs to be Purdue's goal to make every game the most important game of the season from here on out and get at least a piece of that Big Ten title. It would be a damn shame, I think, to have this sort of team and not at least share the Big Ten title this year. But that Big Ten tournament matters now, too. I know Purdue might have its seed locked up by then. It might be one of those situations where you'd almost rather have the rest. But when you have a chance to win a championship, and it's right there out in front of you, you want to win a championship. Why the hell am I talking about the Big Ten tournament on February 9th? Anyway, I think Purdue's put itself in a really good position here. I think, again, as I said before, I think Purdue is the best team in the Big Ten. I've said for weeks now, I think Purdue has had the most capacity of any team in the Big Ten to piece together a run that changes the complexion of the whole conference season. And hey, look, Purdue's now won 6 games in a row. They have swept Illinois in the regular season. They've put themselves in a great position, and they've made me look pretty smart. That's not important. But I think that they need to be hyper-focused now because, the last time you won one of these knockdown dragouts over Illinois, you went to Indiana, and you couldn't put 40 minutes together. You started that game well. Then you had the 10-minute swoon, and then you couldn't get it done in the second half, even though you were able to have a relatively decent lead. So Purdue's got to play really well Thursday night against Michigan. They've got to play really well the rest of the season, because the world is their oyster right now. You're sitting here, You've got a Big Ten championship in your sights. You've got a number 1 seed in your sights. You've got freaking National Player of the Year in Jaden Ivey's sights. Not that that's the most important matter, but I think this was his Big Ten Player of the Year moment tonight. So Purdue's got a lot going for it here, obviously, and it's just a matter of taking advantage of the opportunity. So Purdue has put itself in a great position. Now it's a matter of controlling its own destiny. So I'm going to control my own destiny and go home and go to bed. So doesn't make any sense. So So this is Brian Neubert from goldenblack.com, live once again in Mackey Arena at 1:31 in the morning, following Purdue's 84-68 win over Illinois, biggest win of the season until the next one. This has been brought to you by our friends at the Purdue Union Club Hotel and the 811 Modern Bistro, which is offering a special menu to celebrate Valentine's Day. The chef-chosen menu is available from February 12th to February 14th. Be sure to make your reservations before it is too late. Quite a pitch man I am, huh? Have a good morning, everyone.